Hey everybody out there, and Merry Christmas to all of you guys. Today I decided to do actually two videos today because, well, 'tis the season of giving, and I just decided to do a discussion today, and also later today, guys, you will see a deck profile as well of another Blue Eyes White Dragon deck, so enjoy that when that comes out. But the reason I wanted to discuss this today is that this is just a topic that I've been thinking about, and I wanted to talk about how the game has changed a lot over the course of almost 20 years now in Yu-Gi-Oh! And the TCG, but especially in the last 5 to 6 years, how certain cards have been phased out of the game. Now this happens all the time because of power creep. This is a thing, but there are mainly two specific cards I want to talk about to you guys today. One of them being Dark Hole and the other one being Raigeki. Now, if you guys know the history of both of these cards, initially when the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out, they both came out in Legend of Blue Eyes as super rares. And they were played, at multiple copies in the early part of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And then when the limited list came out, a couple months after initial release of Legend of Blue Eyes, they were played just about in every single deck if you could get your hands on them. They were staple cards. They were what we would call back then staples, and these included such things as Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity later on, but Pot of Greed, Raigeki, Dark Hole, Heavy Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster. These were considered staple cards, which if you look at any deck from that early 2002, 2003, all the way up into 2004, were played in every single deck out there. They just were. And that's where the term and the coin of staple comes from. However, as you guys should know, Dark Hole was limited to one for a long period of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, and Raigeki, shortly after 2004, was banned for many, 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 many years. Now, fast forward in time, Dark Hole was played in a lot of different decks. It was played in multiple different decks because of the ability to completely clear a board. And it was a great going second card as well. Some people, if they knew their deck was predicated to go in first, they would just side deck it and play it if they were going second, because you would just Dark Hole the field and treat it as a Raigeki-esque card. And even mid-game, it could still be good if you were losing the duel. However, as time goes on, and if you look at the tournament reports, you'll start to see that there's more negation type of cards happening in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Dark Hole still saw a play, but it wasn't as powerful because maybe, Six Samurai Shien could negate it. So you would have to bait out another card, like maybe Book of Moon with Six Samurai Shien and then Dark Hole the field. There was multiple different ways as how to play played out as time progressed in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Till we get to a point where Dark Hole went to multiple on the ban list. And we saw two Dark Hole in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And this was around the same time I think we saw Double Mirror Force, and another staple trap card from the early part of Yu-Gi-Oh! Which was considered broken, started to come off the list because traps weren't being played as much. Destruction was not becoming as prevalent. It was not as good. We really started to see this where destroying cards was really not as good as it used to be in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Around what we call, in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, if you look at the history of the game, the Duelist Alliance era. Around the Duelist Alliance era, I would say, maybe even before that, destruction was starting to become less powerful. Still good, just your opponent. You didn't want to get your opponent's effects off in the graveyard. We even saw this a couple of years prior with Dragon Rulers, where people were starting to say, I remember this clearly as a day in 2013 and in 2013 especially, people started using this terminology, that the graveyard was no longer the graveyard. It was your second hand. Fast forward to 2019 into 2020, that is very true nowadays. We treat the graveyard as not the graveyard. Back in the day, if it goes to the graveyard, it dies unless you have a reborn card. It doesn't move back, it doesn't do this, it doesn't come back, it doesn't go back in your deck usually. There were certain cards that did that were very powerful, and they were limited usually. But you understand what I'm trying to say. The graveyard was the graveyard. Now, the graveyard, we treat it as a second hand. And that terminology I started hearing around 2013. Because things were reviving. Destruction didn't really matter as much anymore. And the Duelist Alliance era kind of solidified that for me. As well as Pendulums. When Pendulums started coming out, like, destruction was a joke because, oh, I destroy your Pendulum monsters. They go back to the extra deck. And then next turn, I just spam them all back out. You see why these destruction cards started to become less and less prevalent. Effects became more powerful. Pendulums. And multitude of just the game changing and evolving and power creep. Flash forward to 2019. The end of 2019, mind you. And we don't see these cards really played anymore, do we? Raigeki, a powerful card. Okay, let me ask you this. If you just read the effect and you didn't know the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! So you didn't know how Yu-Gi-Oh! Was played in 2019, alright? You just read the card that said, destroy all your opponent's monsters. Would you think that's a powerful effect? In a nutshell. Destroy all your opponent's monsters. Yeah. But when you take into context the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Not as powerful. Dark Hole. Destroy all monsters on the field. Pretty powerful effect. But when you take into consideration the meta, not so powerful. It shows you how far power creep has come. And it does speak also, in a way, to the history and legacy of Raigeki and Dark Hole. And what do I mean by that? That these cards were so powerful for a long portion of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. These cards were played in the early part of Yu-Gi-Oh! All the way up until very recent modern Yu-Gi-Oh! That speaks a lot to a card when it can transcend multiple formats and multiple years. When a deck or a card can do that, I consider that deck to be a part of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, or ingrained into the culture of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. When it coins certain terminology like staple or board clearing and things of this nature, I think it deserves a part of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. And we even have seen retrains of things like Dark Hole before come out in recent times. We saw Kaiju Slumber. Perfect example of a Dark Hole card that's built into an archetype. But it's a better version of Dark Hole. So, saying all that, we're even getting, I think it is in the next set, if my memory serves me correctly, we're getting a very powerful card. And the reason I'm even bringing this up is I was talking to a buddy about this because I completely forgot this card is coming out. Where I believe it is like a Harpy's Feather Duster and Raigeki all in one card. And I was talking to him. He's like, wow, this card's going to be broken and it's such a powerful card. And I had to say to him, I'm like, yeah, it's a powerful card, but in the context of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the context of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! How powerful is it to destroy all your opponent's monsters? Still good, but is it as good as it used to be? Exactly. Harpy's Feather Duster. How many people run back row unless you're True Draco or Paleozoics or some type of stun deck? Not as prevalent as it used to be. Some decks don't even run traps. Some, if they do, they run impermanence, which is more of a hand trap in a way. I'm just saying that because I've heard people refer to it as that. That tells you how powerful a card that combines two broken cards, Harpy's Feather Duster and Raigeki, into one. And even still, it's powerful, definitely, 100%. There's no denying it. But in the context of modern Yu-Gi-Oh, how powerful is it? Now, I do forget the name of this card, but I know it's coming out of one of the next sets coming up, if I remember correctly. And somebody down below will comment in the comments section. But these are just some things I was talking about with a friend before the holiday season started to kick off. And we were debating how certain cards, well, many Yu-Gi-Oh players would say that's broken, that's busted. And they're right, actually. For once, I would say those are actually correct terminologies to use to a card that combines two, broken cards in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! But in the context of everything, in the context of modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, how powerful are they really? Food for thought. Hope you guys all enjoy the deck profile that'll be coming out later today. And until next time, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, and I'll see all of you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Good luck dueling to all of you.